She thought his backyard was her personal playground. Every morning, Karen Walsh strutted through his gate like she owned the place, her entitled smirk growing bolder with each invasion. But Marcus Chen had been documenting every trespass, every lie, every cruel comment about his foreign landscaping. What she didn't know was that her own husband had been secretly funding Marcus's elaborate revenge plan for months. When the tables finally turned, the neighborhood would never be the same. Some battles are won with lawyers. Others require a more creative touch. Marcus Chen's hands trembled as he watched the security footage for the third time that morning. There she was against Karen Walsh, his next-door neighbor, brazenly walking through his backyard gate at 7:23 a.m., her blonde ponytail swaying with each confident step. She moved like she owned the place, her designer workout clothes pristine. Despite the early morning dew covering his carefully maintained lawn, the timestamp showed she'd been in his yard for 47 minutes yesterday. 47 minutes of using his pool, rearranging his patio furniture, and Marcus's jaw clenched, letting her unleashed German shepherd defecate near his prized Japanese maple. This ends today, Marcus muttered, scrolling through weeks of similar footage on his tablet. Each video was dated, time-stamped, and saved in triplicate. His background in IT had taught him the value of thorough documentation. The back door slammed open, and his wife Alina emerged with 2 steaming cups of coffee, her dark hair still tousled from sleep. She's at it again. Look at this. Marcus angled the tablet toward her. On screen, Karen was lounging on their expensive pool float, the one Alina had bought for their 10th anniversary, while scrolling through her phone. She's been there since sunrise. Elena's grip tightened on her coffee mug. That's our float. The nerve of this woman. It gets worse. Marcus swiped to another video. Yesterday she brought friends, 3 of them. They were doing some kind of water aerobics class in our pool. What? Elena's voice rose an octave. She's charging people to use our pool. I counted 6 different cars in her driveway during class time. $20 per person. According to the flyer I found floating in our skimmer. Alina set down her coffee with enough force to slosh it onto the patio table. That's it. I'm calling the police. Already tried. Officer Martinez said it's a civil matter since there's no immediate threat. Recommended small claims court. Marcus's fingers drummed against the tablet case. But that could take months. Through the sliding glass door, they could see Karen now floating serenely in their pool. A large iced drink balanced on her stomach. She'd positioned herself perfectly to catch the morning sun, completely oblivious to, or more likely, deliberately ignoring the fact that she was trespassing. How did this even start? Alina asked, though they both knew the answer. It had begun 3 months ago when Marcus installed the fence. The previous owners had never bothered with proper property lines, and decades of informal neighborly agreements had blurred the boundaries. When Marcus hired a surveyor and discovered their lot extended 15 feet further east than anyone realized, he'd acted within his rights to fence the entire perimeter. The fence had cut off Karen's traditional access to what she'd considered a shared backyard space. Never mind that she'd never contributed a penny to pool maintenance, landscaping, or utilities. Never mind that the property records clearly showed the land belonged to the Chens. Karen had pitched a fit that could be heard 3 blocks away. 30 years, she'd screamed at Marcus while he supervised the fence installation. 30 years my family has used this yard. You can't just steal it. It was never yours to use. Marcus had replied calmly, showing her the survey documents. This has always been our property. I don't care what some piece of paper says. This is America. We have squatters' rights. Marcus had patiently explained that squatters' rights didn't work that way, especially when the previous owners had never granted permission and current owners were actively reclaiming their land. Karen's response had been to march to every house on the block, spreading a version of events that painted Marcus as a greedy immigrant trying to steal American land. The racism had been subtle at first, comments about foreign landscaping choices, complaints about the weird smell of Elena's cooking drifting over the fence, pointed questions about whether Marcus was really a citizen. But as Karen's fury grew, so did her boldness. You people come here and think you can just take whatever you want, she'd hissed during one memorable confrontation. This neighborhood was perfect before you showed up. Marcus had installed the security cameras the next day. Now, watching Karen treat their pool like her personal resort, Elena's hands were shaking with rage. She's doing this to humiliate us. She knows we can see her. Of course she does. Marcus zoomed in on the footage. Look at her positioning. She's facing our house. This is a power play. So what do? We can't live like prisoners in our own home. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying Karen's smug expression on the screen. An idea was beginning to form, something that would require patience, planning, and a level of strategic thinking Karen Walsh had never demonstrated. We document everything, he said finally. Every single trespass, every piece of property damage, every minute she spends on our land. For court? Maybe. Marcus's smile was cold. Or maybe for something better. Alina raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? Karen thinks she's smart. She thinks because she's lived here longer, because she's louder, because she has more friends on the block, she can bully us into submission. Marcus closed the tablet and stood. But she doesn't know who she's dealing with. Marcus, she wants to play games. Fine. but she's about to learn that some people are much better at games than others. Before Alina could respond, the sound of splashing drew their attention back to the pool. Karen had apparently decided to do laps, her powerful strokes cutting through the water with practiced efficiency. She was, Marcus had to admit, an excellent swimmer. That detail filed itself away in the growing database of Karen intelligence that Marcus was compiling. Every habit, every routine, every weakness. He was building a profile with the same methodical precision he'd once used to debug complex software systems. She's got to have a vulnerability, Marcus murmured. Everyone does. What kind of vulnerability? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Marcus picked up his tablet again, opening a new document. Alina, do you remember what Tom Walsh does for work? Tom, Karen's husband? Alina frowned. Something in insurance? I think. Why? Just curious. But Marcus was already typing notes. Tom Walsh had always seemed embarrassed by his wife's behavior, offering awkward apologies and nervous laughter whenever Karen launched into one of her tirades. During the fence installation, Tom had actually helped Marcus carry materials, muttering under his breath about property rights and legal documents. Interesting. The pool gate clanged shut, and they watched Karen stride across their lawn toward the fence line. She had installed a step stool on her side, making it easy to climb over despite the 6-foot height. As she swung her leg over the top rail, she looked directly at their sliding door and waved. Not a friendly wave, a victorious one. Did she just... Elena's voice was dangerous. Oh, she did. Marcus was already pulling up the camera app on his phone. And now I have her trespassing and destroying property on video. Destroying property. Marcus pointed to where the fence rail sagged under Karen's weight. That's going to need repairs. Add it to the bill? But even as he spoke, Marcus's mind was elsewhere, running calculations and possibilities. The cameras were just the beginning. If Karen wanted to escalate this conflict, he'd need more than video evidence. He'd need allies, leverage, and a plan sophisticated enough to match her determination. As Karen disappeared into her house, Marcus caught a glimpse of movement in the Walsh's front window. A man's silhouette, watching. Tom had been home the entire time, aware that his wife was trespassing. That was useful information. Marcus opened a new contact on his phone and scrolled through the neighborhood directory until he found Tom Walsh's cell number. His finger hovered over the call button for a long moment before he set the phone aside. Not yet, but soon, Marcus. Elena's voice pulled him back to the present. What are you planning? He looked at his wife, brilliant, patient Elena, who'd stood by him through immigration paperwork, career changes, and now this ridiculous neighborhood war. She deserved better than to feel like a prisoner in her own home. I'm planning to win, Marcus said simply. Karen thinks she holds all the cards because she's loud and shameless, but she's forgotten something important. What's that? Marcus smiled, and for the first time in months, it reached his eyes. I'm an engineer. I solve problems for a living. And Karen Walsh just became my most interesting problem yet. The security camera chimed with another motion alert. Marcus glanced at the tablet to see Karen's German Shepherd digging enthusiastically in Elena's flower bed, scattering mulch and crushing delicate blooms. He started recording again, but this time his expression wasn't frustrated or angry. This time, Marcus Chen looked like a man who'd just been handed the final piece of a very complex puzzle. Karen had no idea what she'd started, but the next morning, Marcus was waiting in his home office when Tom Walsh's rusty Honda pulled out of the driveway at exactly 7:42 a.m. Karen's morning routine was as predictable as clockwork: coffee on the back porch at 8 o'clock, pool invasion by 8:15, and 45 minutes of what she apparently considered her constitutional right to aquatic leisure. But today, Marcus had a different plan. He slipped through his front door and crossed the street to where Mrs. Patterson was watering her roses. At 73, Dorothy Patterson had lived on Maple Street longer than anyone and possessed what Elena called PhD level neighborhood gossip intelligence. Morning, Dorothy, Marcus called out, his tone carefully casual. The elderly woman looked up with undisguised curiosity. Dorothy had been watching the fence drama unfold with the keen interest of someone who'd seen decades of neighbor disputes. Marcus, how are you holding up, dear? I saw Karen doing her little victory lap in your backyard yesterday. You saw that, honey? The whole block saw it. She made sure of that. Dorothy adjusted her sun hat and leaned closer. That woman has been trouble since the day she moved in, but Tom's different. Good man. Shame he married that harpy. Marcus felt a spark of opportunity. Tom seems nice enough. What does he do again? Insurance adjuster. Works for Midwest Mutual downtown. Dorothy's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. But here's what's interesting. He's been working overtime like crazy lately. Karen's been complaining to anyone who'll listen about never seeing him. Financial troubles. Could be. I heard through Linda Murphy, you know Linda, lives in the blue house that Tom took out a second mortgage last year. Something about Karen's business venture. Marcus's attention sharpened. Business venture. Oh, you didn't know? Karen's been trying to start some kind of wellness coaching thing, charging people for advice about lifestyle optimization or some such nonsense. Hasn't been going well. From what I hear, the pieces were starting to click together. Karen's recent pool classes, the desperate need to maintain her image of success, The territorial behavior over the backyard, it wasn't just entitlement. It was financial desperation dressed up as righteousness. Thanks for the chat, Dorothy. I should get back to work. Marcus. Dorothy's voice stopped him. Be careful with that one. Karen Walsh doesn't fight fair. As Marcus walked back across the street, his phone buzzed with a security alert. Right on schedule, Karen was climbing over his fence. But today she wasn't alone. A woman Marcus didn't recognize was following her, carrying what looked like yoga mats and a small speaker. By the time he reached his backyard, Karen had settled herself on his pool float while her companion set up equipment on his patio. Stranger was maybe 5, wearing expensive athletic wear and the kind of confident smile that suggested she was used to getting her way. "Excuse me," Marcus called out through the sliding door. "You're on private property." Karen didn't even look up from her phone. "This is Jessica, my business partner. We're conducting a wellness assessment." "Not on my property, you're not." The woman named Jessica approached the door with practiced charm. "Hi there. I'm Jessica Martinez from Harmony Wellness Solutions. Karen mentioned you might be interested in our couple's meditation packages." Marcus stared at her. "You're conducting business on my property without permission." While Karen said, Karen lied. Marcus's voice was flat. "This is my pool, my patio, and my property. You need to leave immediately." Jessica's smile faltered. She glanced back at Karen, who was now floating with deliberate nonchalance, clearly enjoying the confrontation. "There seems to be some confusion," Jessica said carefully. Karen explained that there was a shared agreement about the yard space. "There's no agreement. There never was. Karen is trespassing, and now so are you." Marcus. Karen's voice carried across the water, saccharine sweet. "Don't be rude to my guest." Jessica drove all the way from downtown. Marcus pulled out his phone and started recording. "I'm documenting this trespass for legal purposes. You have 2 minutes to gather your things and leave, or I'm calling the police." Jessica was already packing up her equipment, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Karen, maybe we should find another location for the session." "Absolutely not." Karen's voice had turned cold. "I've been using this space for 30 years. Some people just don't understand community cooperation. 30 years of trespassing doesn't create legal rights." Marcus replied evenly. 1 minute and 40 seconds. Jessica was practically jogging toward the fence now, her wellness guru composure completely abandoned. But Karen remained floating in the pool, her arms crossed in defiance. "You know what your problem is, Marcus?" Karen's voice carried the particular venom she reserved for their worst confrontations. "You think money can buy you respect. You think that fancy job and your foreign wife make you better than people who've been here for generations." Marcus felt his anger spike, but he kept his voice level. 30 seconds. "But here's what you don't understand about America, sweetheart. Community matters, relationships matter, and you've just alienated every potential ally you might have had on this block." As if summoned by her words, several neighbors had emerged. From their houses, drawn by the raised voices, Marcus could see Linda Murphy standing on her front porch, phone in hand. The Johnsons from 2 houses down were watching from their driveway. Even old Mr. Peterson had come out to see what the commotion was about. Karen had orchestrated this perfectly. Marcus realized she'd wanted an audience for his unreasonable behavior. "Time's up," he said, dialing 911. But as the phone rang, Karen finally climbed out of the pool, water streaming from her designer swimsuit. She moved with unhurried precision, gathering her towel and sunglasses while Marcus spoke to the emergency dispatcher. "No, it's not an emergency," he was saying. "I need someone to document a trespassing incident." Karen paused at the fence, looking back at Marcus with something like pity. "You just made a big mistake, neighbor. This community takes care of its own, and you just proved you're not one of us." She climbed over the fence with practiced ease, leaving Marcus standing alone in his backyard while a crowd of neighbors watched from the street. Several were already walking toward Karen, clearly offering support and sympathy. Marcus ended the call with the police department. They'd send someone when available, probably in an hour or two, and walked back inside. Alina was waiting with a grim expression. "I heard the whole thing," she said. "She played you, I know." Marcus slumped into a kitchen chair, suddenly exhausted. "She turned me into the villain in front of the whole neighborhood. So what?" "Nope." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching through the window as Karen held court on the sidewalk, gesticulating dramatically, while their neighbors nodded in apparent sympathy. Jessica had long since disappeared, but the damage was done. "Now I stop playing by the rules," Marcus said finally. "What do you mean?" "Karen's right about one thing: community relationships matter. But she's wrong about who's going to control those relationships." Marcus picked up his tablet and opened a new document. "She wants to make this about belonging. Fine, let's see how she likes it when she's the outsider." Alina frowned. "Marcus, you're scaring me a little. Karen thinks she knows this neighborhood. She thinks she understands how power works here." Marcus's fingers were already flying across the keyboard, pulling up property records, business registrations, and financial documents. "But she's forgotten something important." "What?" "I'm not just an engineer. I'm a systems analyst. And every social system has vulnerabilities. He turned the tablet toward Alina, showing a complex diagram he'd been building, a network map of every resident on their street, complete with relationship connections, shared interests, and potential leverage points. Dorothy Patterson is the information hub, Marcus explained, pointing to a central node on the diagram. The Johnsons care most about property values. Linda Murphy is obsessed with garden competitions. The Hendersons are new parents who value quiet neighbors. You've been studying our neighbors like lab rats, like a network. And Karen's been operating on the assumption that loudness equals influence. But real influence comes from understanding what people actually want. Marcus highlighted several connections on the map. Karen's been focusing on the wrong metrics. Alina studied the diagram with growing amazement. How long have you been working on this? Since the fence went up, but I've been thinking about it wrong, treating this like a property dispute when it's actually a social engineering problem. Social engineering. Marcus smiled, and this time it wasn't entirely pleasant. You know how hackers gain access to secure systems? They don't break down the walls. They find the person with the password and convince them to share it. Before Alina could respond, Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed Tom Walsh's number. Marcus and Alina exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Hello, Marcus. Tom's voice was strained, barely above a whisper. It's Tom Walsh, from next door. Can we, can we talk? Privately. When? Now, if possible. Karen's at her book club, won't be back for 2 hours. There was a pause. Please, it's important. Marcus looked at Alina, who nodded slowly. Where do you want to meet? Your front porch. I don't want to seem like I'm sneaking around, but I also don't want Karen to see us. Tom Walsh looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of more than just fatigue. As he approached Marcus's front porch, he kept glancing back at his own house like a nervous criminal. Thanks for meeting me, Tom said, settling heavily into one of the wicker chairs. His hands shook slightly as he reached into his jacket pocket. I wasn't sure you'd want to talk after ... Well, after everything. Marcus chose his words carefully. Your wife and I have had our differences, but that doesn't mean we can't be reasonable neighbors. Tom let out a bitter laugh. Reasonable. Yeah, that's not a word I'd use to describe Karen lately. He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper and stared at it for a long moment. Marcus, can I ask you something? Man to man? Sure. How much do you know about bankruptcy law? The question hung in the air like a thunderclap. Marcus felt his pulse quicken, but he kept his expression neutral. Tom unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. It was a legal document, a notice of foreclosure proceedings from Midwest Bank and Trust. We're losing the house, he said quietly. Karen doesn't know yet. The final notice came to my office yesterday. Marcus scanned the document quickly. The Walshes owed $127,000 in back payments, accumulated over 18 months of missed mortgages. The foreclosure sale was scheduled for 6 weeks from today. Tom, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Of course you didn't. Karen's been putting on this performance for the whole neighborhood, pretending everything's fine while our world falls apart. Tom's voice cracked. Do you know what it's like to watch your wife destroy relationships with everyone on the block while you're desperately trying to save your home? What happened? If you don't mind me asking. Tom rubbed his face with both hands. Karen's business? This wellness coaching thing? She convinced me it was going to be huge, said she had insider knowledge about the industry, connections that would make us rich. He gestured toward his house. So I refinanced, took out a second mortgage, cashed in my retirement account, and the business. Turns out, Karen's insider knowledge came from some multi-level marketing seminar she attended. In Chicago, she paid $15,000 for a certification that's basically worthless. Then she spent another $30,000 on inventory that she can't sell. Tom's laugh was hollow. Wellness supplements, meditation, crystals, essential oils. Our garage is full of garbage that nobody wants. Marcus was beginning to understand the true scope of Karen's desperation. The pool invasions, the territorial behavior, the increasing aggression. It wasn't just entitlement. It was a woman watching her world collapse and lashing out at the nearest target. Why are you telling me this? Marcus asked gently. Because I can't take it anymore. Tom's voice dropped to a whisper. She's been using your pool to host these fake wellness retreats, charging people $20 each for what she calls authentic outdoor meditation experiences. She told her clients that you gave permission. Marcus felt his anger surge, but Tom wasn't finished. Yesterday, after that scene with the police, she came home ranting about how you were trying to destroy her business out of racism. She's planning something, Marcus. Something bigger than just trespassing. What kind of something? Tom pulled out his phone and showed Marcus a series of text messages. The sender was listed as Jessica, business partner, but the content made Marcus's blood run cold. Meeting with Channel 7 reporter tomorrow. Story angle. Immigrant family destroys local entrepreneur's American dream. Through frivolous lawsuits and property disputes. Got contact info for city council members. Will emphasize community disruption angle. HOA president very interested in our side of the story. Suggests emergency meeting about community standards. Marcus stared at the messages, his mind racing. Karen wasn't just planning to escalate, she was orchestrating a full-scale media and political campaign designed to destroy his reputation and potentially force him out of the neighborhood. There's more, Tom said quietly. He swiped to another conversation thread, this one with someone named Brad, legal consultant, researching property acquisition laws. Previous owner may have granted informal easement that new owners must honor, looking into zoning violations for fence height and placement. Immigration status verification could be useful leverage if needed. She's targeting your citizenship status, Tom said, his voice barely audible. I tried to talk her out of it, but she's convinced that if she can prove you're here illegally, the city will side with her on the property dispute. Marcus felt the world tilt slightly. He'd been an American citizen for 8 years. His immigration status was completely legal and documented. But he also knew that in the current political climate, even the suggestion of immigration problems could destroy careers and reputations. Tom, why are you showing me this? Because it's wrong. Tom's voice strengthened for the first time since the conversation began. Because I've watched Karen become someone I don't recognize. Because 30 years ago, I married a woman who cared about helping people, not destroying them. Marcus studied Tom's face carefully. The man was clearly in pain, caught between loyalty to his wife and his own moral compass. But there was something else in his expression, a hint of calculation that suggested Tom Walsh might be more strategic. Then he appeared. What do you want from me? Marcus asked. I want to make a deal. There it was. Marcus leaned back in his chair, reassessing everything. Tom wasn't just a guilt-ridden husband seeking absolution. He was a man facing financial ruin who'd recognized an opportunity. What kind of deal? Tom glanced around nervously, then leaned forward. I'll give you everything. Karen's plans, her contacts, her strategy, every detail of what she's planning to do to you and your family, in exchange for help me save my house. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. Tom was offering to betray his wife's confidence in exchange for financial assistance. It was morally complicated, potentially legally questionable, and absolutely perfect for Marcus's purposes. How much do you need? $50,000 to bring the mortgage current. Another $32,000 pay off the credit cards Karen maxed out for her business. Tom's voice was steady now, businesslike. $80,000 total. That's a lot of money. No, but Marcus, you don't understand what Karen's planning. She's not just trying to embarrass you. She wants to destroy your life completely, make you unemployable, force you to sell the house, and leave the neighborhood. Marcus thought about Alina, about the life they'd built together, about the security they'd worked so hard to achieve. Karen's campaign could indeed cause serious damage, even if her allegations were ultimately proven false. And if I help you with the mortgage, I'll sabotage everything. Feed you information about her meetings, warn you about her tactics, even testify on your behalf if it comes to court. Tom's expression hardened. Karen thinks she's fighting for our survival, but she's actually guaranteeing our destruction. This way, at least one of us comes out ahead. Marcus stood up and walked to the porch railing, looking out at the quiet street where he'd hoped to build a peaceful life. Karen's escalation had forced him into a position where he had to choose between passive victimhood and active warfare. When he turned back to Tom, his decision was made. I'll need documentation. Copies of everything, her business records, the foreclosure papers, her communications with reporters and city officials, everything. Tom nodded eagerly. Done, and I'll need you to wear a wire. What? If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Karen's planning to destroy me using lies and manipulation. I want evidence of every conversation, every plan, every illegal or unethical thing she's considering. Tom swallowed hard. She's my wife, Marcus. She's also trying to destroy innocent people to cover up her own failures. You said yourself this isn't the woman you married. For a long moment, Tom stared at his hands. When he looked up, his expression was resigned but determined. Okay, but I want the money in escrow first, and I want a written agreement that you'll pay the full amount, regardless of what happens with Karen. Marcus smiled. Tom Walsh was more sophisticated than he'd initially appeared. Fair enough. I'll have my lawyer draw up the paperwork. Your lawyer. Tom, you don't survive in the tech industry without learning to protect yourself legally. I've been documenting Karen's harassment for months, and I have resources she can't imagine. Marcus's smile turned cold. She wants to play hardball. Fine, but she's about to learn that some people play better than others. As Tom stood to leave, Marcus caught his arm. One more thing. Does Karen know about Jessica's media contacts? The reporter meeting, she thinks Jessica set it up independently. Karen doesn't know that Jessica's actually my cousin's daughter, and that she's been feeding me information about Karen's plans from the beginning. Marcus stared at him. Your cousin's daughter? My family's been watching this slow-motion disaster for months. Jessica volunteered to help document Karen's business practices for the bankruptcy proceedings. Tom's smile was grim. Turns out Karen's been making a lot of promises to clients that she can't keep, claiming medical benefits for her products, guaranteeing financial returns that violate FTC regulations. You've been playing the long game. The Channel 7 news van pulled up to Maple Street at exactly 3 p.m., just as Marcus had expected. From his home office window, he watched Karen emerge from her house, wearing what appeared to be a carefully chosen outfit, casual enough to seem relatable, professional enough to convey authority. She'd even done something different with her hair. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Tom. Reporter is Amanda Stevens. Karen coached with her for 2 hours yesterday. Claims you threatened her with violence. Marcus quickly typed back, recording everything. Stay in position. Through his earpiece, he could hear the live audio feed from the wire Tom was wearing. The technology was surprisingly sophisticated, a gift from Marcus's former colleague at the cybersecurity firm, who'd been happy to lend equipment for what he called neighborhood defense purposes. Told you, this man has been systematically harassing our family for months. Karen's voice came through crystal clear as she approached the reporter. The threats, the surveillance cameras, the aggressive confrontations. We're honestly afraid. For our safety, Marcus had to admire her performance. Karen's voice carried just the right blend of vulnerability and righteous indignation. If he hadn't known the truth, he might have been convinced himself. Amanda Stevens was a sharp-looking woman in her 30s, the kind of ambitious local reporter who'd built her career on exposing neighborhood scandals and municipal corruption. She directed her cameraman to film Karen standing in front of the disputed fence while she delivered what sounded like a rehearsed statement. The Chen family moved to our community 18 months ago, Karen began, looking directly into the camera. At first, we welcomed them with open arms. I personally organized a neighborhood potluck to introduce them to everyone. Marcus snorted. Karen had indeed organized a potluck, primarily to complain about the previous owners and pump the new neighbors for information about their backgrounds and financial status. But almost immediately, we began noticing concerning behavior, aggressive property disputes, threats against longtime residents, and most troubling of all, attempts to use immigration status as intimidation. That's a serious allegation, Amanda, Stevens interjected. Can you provide specific examples? Through his earpiece, Marcus heard Tom's sharp intake of breath. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. Karen was about to cross the line from personal dispute into actionable defamation. Just last week, Mr. Chen explicitly told my husband that people like us don't belong in America anymore, Karen said, her voice quavering with apparent emotion. He said that immigrants like him work harder and deserve more than families who've been here for generations. Marcus felt his anger spike, but he forced himself to remain calm. Every word Karen spoke was being recorded from multiple sources, and her lies were becoming more elaborate by the minute. Furthermore, Karen continued, warming to her theme, we've discovered that Mr. Chen has been conducting illegal surveillance of our family, recording private conversations and monitoring our daily activities. We believe he may be involved in some kind of identity theft or fraud scheme targeting longtime residents. Amanda Stevens looked genuinely intrigued now. Have you reported these concerns to local authorities? We've tried, but Mr. Chen appears to have connections within the police department. Our complaints have been ignored or dismissed. Karen's voice took on a conspiratorial tone. We're starting to wonder if his immigration status is actually legal, and whether certain officials are being influenced to protect him. Marcus's phone exploded with incoming messages. Alina, are you hearing this? David Lawyer, recording everything. This is gold. Tom, she's going completely off script. Even I didn't know she was planning this level of crazy. But Karen wasn't finished. She'd apparently decided that if she was going to destroy Marcus, she might as well be thorough about it. We've also learned that Mr. Chen has been using fraudulent documents to secure employment and housing, she continued. His so-called engineering job may be a cover for industrial espionage or intellectual property theft. The timing of his arrival in our community, combined with his suspicious behavior, suggests this may be part of a larger pattern of foreign infiltration. Marcus actually laughed out loud. Karen had just accused him of being a spy, on live television, with no evidence and no apparent awareness that every word constituted criminal defamation. Amanda Stevens, to her credit, looked skeptical. Mrs. Walsh, these are very serious allegations. Do you have documentation to support these claims? I have witnesses, Karen replied confidently. Several neighbors have expressed similar concerns about Mr. Chen's behavior and background. We're organizing a community meeting to address these issues formally. Through the window, Marcus could see several neighbors gathering on the sidewalk, apparently drawn by the news van. Dorothy Patterson was there, along with the Johnsons, Linda Murphy, and at least 6 other residents. Some looked curious, others concerned, but Marcus noticed that most seemed to be keeping their distance from Karen rather than rallying to her support. His phone rang. Dorothy Patterson's number. Marcus, dear, are you watching this insanity? Every word. Good, because I've been making some calls of my own. Dorothy's voice carried a hint of steel that Marcus had never heard before. Did you know that Karen Walsh filed for 3 different business licenses in the past year, all under different names? Or that she's been advertising services she's not certified to provide? Marcus's attention sharpened. What kind of services? Medical advice? Financial consulting? Even marriage counseling? I have a friend at City Hall who pulled the records. Karen's been claiming credentials she doesn't have and charging people for services that require actual licenses. Dorothy, you're amazing. Honey, I've been dealing with troublemakers for 70 years. Karen Walsh is nasty, but she's not smart. Dorothy's voice grew more serious. But Marcus, you need to know she's not just targeting you anymore. She's been spreading rumors about Alina too, claiming she's here illegally, that your marriage might be fraudulent. Marcus felt his vision go red around the edges. Attacking him was one thing, but targeting Alina crossed a line that Karen would regret for the rest of her life. What exactly has she been saying? Nothing I'm going to repeat. Dear Butts, it's ugly, and it's spreading. Linda Murphy called me this morning asking if it was true that Alina was involved in some kind of visa fraud. Marcus looked out the window again. The crowd around the news van had grown larger, and Karen seemed to be holding an impromptu Q&A session with neighbors. From his vantage point, he could see animated gestures and nodding heads. But he couldn't tell if people were agreeing with her or simply being polite. Dorothy, I need a favor. Name it. Can you arrange for as many neighbors as possible to be at your house in 1 hour? Tell them you have important information about the situation with Karen and me. Consider it done. What are you planning? Marcus smiled, and this time it was genuinely warm. I'm planning to tell the truth. All of it. After hanging up with Dorothy, Marcus spent the next 30 minutes preparing. He gathered documents, organized video files, and made copies of every piece of evidence he'd collected about Karen's harassment campaign. Then he called David, his lawyer. David, I need you here in 45 minutes. Bring the bankruptcy documents, the business fraud evidence, and the recording equipment. Marcus, what are you doing? I'm ending this tonight. Karen wants a public confrontation? Fine, but she's about to learn that some battles are won by superior firepower, and others are won by superior intelligence. You're sure about this approach? Marcus looked out at the news van, where Karen was still performing for the cameras, completely unaware that her husband was wearing a wire, and that her every word was being documented for future legal proceedings. Karen made this public when she decided to destroy my reputation on television. Now she gets to face the consequences in the same forum. As Marcus prepared to leave for Dorothy's house, his phone buzzed with one final message from Tom. Karen just told the reporter she has inside information about your immigration status and employment history. She's planning to release documents tomorrow that will prove you're here illegally. Marcus, I don't know what documents she's talking about, but she seems very confident. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, let her try. Some battles are won before they're even fought. He grabbed his laptop bag, loaded with enough evidence to destroy Karen's credibility permanently, and headed for what he knew would be the final confrontation in their neighborhood war. Karen Walsh thought she was about to deliver the killing blow to her enemies. Instead, she was about to walk directly into the most sophisticated trap Marcus Chen had ever constructed, one that would leave her reputation, her marriage, and her entire life in ruins, while simultaneously exposing her to criminal prosecution for fraud, defamation, and harassment. The perfect storm was about to break, and Karen had no idea she was standing directly in its path.